let's just dig right in. Starting out with the minutes, did people have time to go through the minutes? I kind of wanted input on them because, these are
The AI minutes?
the AI minutes.
Yeah, I loved them.
You did. You were the
Yeah.
only person that gave me feedback on that.
It just was concise and bullet points and easy to read, and I thought it hit everything we talked about completely adequately. I was thoroughly and pleasantly surprised.
Was it from a recording? How did you?
Yes.
Wow.
It does a summary of what we talked about,
Yeah,
and
right.
I thought it did a really good job.
It creates a transcript of the verbal conversation, and then it processes that through an AI.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do a perfect job. And to give you an example, we were just talking about one of the action items I had was to ask Connor about the words in here were committee membership, and that didn't mean anything to me. So I realized when I looked back at this afternoon, I said, what was that about?
These were last week you sent them, right? I looked at it.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was AI.
Yeah, it is.
That's cool.
Oh, I think I read it almost as soon as you sent it.
Yeah.
So maybe it was fresh in my mind and I knew what everything meant, but I was like, oh yeah, that's everything we talked about. I don't know.
Well, so I can go back and I can query the AI and say, what is this thing about committee membership?
Yeah.
And it answered me and it said there was a discussion about how many people have to be members of the group, and it said there's a minimum of 4. And I don't remember that. So I said, where did you come up with this membership of 4? And it hallucinated.
Oh, okay.
It said, sorry, that wasn't what was in the conversation. So you've got to be careful. I mean, these things are still tricky, but the fact is that
I didn't query it. I just was like, yep, this covered what we talked about.
I don't think you can. I can because I've got the application and I'm on a trial for it. But I don't know if you recall when we formed, we're asking, who would be vice chair, who would take minutes. It was not easy to get someone to take minutes. I think this is a good solution. I've been using it for other meetings, and what everyone has in a meeting has to be aware of is that I am taking a transcript and I'm using it for this purpose. So be on notice that I will be doing this regularly. But I was happy with the minutes. I did tweak them a bit, obviously. It doesn't know what numbers are present and absent and things like that. But overall, I was pretty happy with the job I did. Leah sent her minutes this afternoon, and I did a comparison. Obviously, they're not the same. They hit most of the same general points, and I think the main point for me is that they stimulate my thinking back to the meeting enough that I can remember what things were about and what I was supposed to do.
Did you enter your agenda into the chat to also?
I did on
direct
this time. I haven't today, and I'm going to see what happens.
I wonder if the AI will be offended we're talking.
But anyway, so if no one has any modifications, we'll accept those minutes and okay. Close them down. We do have a lot to go through tonight. I did talk to Connor. We had a few items that I had been asked to talk to Connor about. One was the membership, specifically. What's Diane St. Jean's?
Diane St. Jean and Roger. Well, Roger had expressed
Cambridge and your husband.
interest. If we need somebody to do a website, Dave did it for Library Foundation, and he said he would do it for us as long as he didn't have to be an official member. And Diane St. Jean does an amazing job of marketing, some of the skills that we had.
Have you talked to her about this?
No, I'm sorry. I thought it was going to come from you, but I said I can't talk to her about it.
No, I thought you might have, because I was supposed to do that in the interview in a couple of weeks. I just haven't had time. No, I'll get in touch with her and I'll speak to Roger as well. So that, I mentioned it to Connor. I was hoping to get some feedback from him. I did not. He did give me some feedback. Jim, I do have access to Eversource
You got that?
records now.
And they do have the town hall on there now.
Yeah,
Originally, they didn't. For some reason, we couldn't access the town hall.
there are some weird things on there which we'll need to go over. I'll get to that. Let's
They've
not
got
go
old
there.
accounts on there too.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. I don't care about that.
yeah.
But one important thing that Connor did convey to me was that he wanted us to take a vote on the membership agreement for the Poverty Plains Group that metering project. The reason is that although the project isn't going to be completed until next year, the project has to be completely subscribed for the coalition to do their power purchase agreement. And I think as a result of the office hour that Mark Bollinger held last week, there's going to be actually quite a lot of activity and it's going to be subscribed very quickly. So I wanted to get in there quickly. I went to Connor with the membership agreement when it was passed by the board. I was actually doing that meeting here and another meeting afterwards. Has anyone looked at that agreement?
Yes.
I read it. I don't know if I fully understand.
Do you want to go through it
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might be helpful to spend maybe 5 minutes just like pros
Yeah.
and cons list. I think I
That's what I
have one in my head, but I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
I'm not sure how it relates into what we currently have as a member of Community Park. I don't know if it's.
So all that it is a discount on our electricity. That's the only thing is we actually get a 12.5 discount off of the amount of energy that we have purchased in a given billing period paid by Eversource.
Is this across the whole town for residents or just for the
No,
town?
no,
It's
it's
municipal. Okay,
just
okay.
municipal.
And it's municipal that doesn't have rooftop solar already because,
Yeah.
right?
No, actually, the town hall can subscribe to it, but what we have to be careful about is when we say what the load is that we're presenting to the grid for this building, it's pretty small because we've got solar.
Okay, got it. So we give them our load numbers for all of our municipal buildings, which for this building is low. And then we get, at least as I read this, they sort of estimate a little lower than that, and we get 12.5% of that slightly lower number.
They need to have a safe margin.
Yeah.
If you say you use more than you actually do use, that's a bad situation.
Right.
I'm not sure how that gets reconciled.
So say, I think they give an example somewhere of say you said 550, they're gonna put in 500, for example, and then you get 12.5% of that. But there's no upfront cost to us.
So the advantage of this program, there's a couple of advantages of this over other programs like Kearsarge that presented to us. They're basically the same type of program, not
Yeah.
basically, they are the same type of programs. The advantage of this one is that it's 12.5% as opposed to 10%. But the more important one is that all of the other agreements are 20-year agreements you're entering into. This has a 1-year cancellation clause. And that's very significant. For the other ones, we would have to have a warrant article. For this, we do not.
And was it just in the first year you had an option to cancel?
No.
That's how I
that
understood it. It was like at
was-
any point you can.
So that was what Mark and I had spoken about a couple of months ago, but
Okay.
we changed that. Now, at any point, if you give 12 months notice, you can leave penalty free.
I don't understand what they're getting from us.
For data, of our usage data.
That's,
Isn't
that how the
actually
percentage
what they're
actually-
doing is they're getting the recs. And they need the recs to meet their portfolio.
Oh, yeah, but
requirement.
the tool they use to do that is our data. Like our data is what drives their
Yeah.
ability to get the recs.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Because we don't use those racks anywhere else, anyway else.
No, we actually will get, we can still, we may lose the ability to sell those racks. No, we don't. We don't.
Is there any financial monetary attachment to those racks for the town, for us?
There is, and we don't lose that now that I'm thinking about it. This is an agreement that's made between Eversource, the company that's building this facility, and the coalition. So whether or not the town is selling our rooftop racks to the coalition or someone else, doesn't really matter. The town still gets paid for those racks. But the coalition is making money off of the wrecks that it's getting for the, what's the name of this place?
Poverty
Poverty Plains. So those are the wrecks that they're getting to take advantage of.
And the only building that has recs in this town is this one, like the
The
school and
only
whatever.
municipal.
Yeah, sorry, we're talking about municipal.
Jim, do you know what we spend a year electrical from town buildings?
Around $55,000,
So we save on
about 270,000 kilowatts.
So save the town about $6,000 a year.
So,
With,
Is the monthly, I mean, is the distribution of the 12.5%, is that monthly that he was talking
It
about?
is.
Bollinger did a little graph where you had 10,000, simple math, 10,000
right.
kilowatt load, then you would get 125.
Yeah, that was a simplified example.
Just an example.
But it happens to
That's
be pretty close.
That's the monthly.
It is monthly, and so there was, if you read the initial presentation, there was a discussion that it could be done with on-bill or off-bill
Right.
billing, which we don't want. We really don't want off-bill
Doesn't want
because
bill.
it's messy. And he has assured me that they will. The only reason they would do off-bill was if there was no other choice for certain clients, and we're not in that
so
situation.
it's essentially a straight up discount on the bill. Yeah, okay.
So doesn't sound like there's any liability on us. So this project, there's so much up in the air right now with federal and grants and things like that. And like, what if this project starts out and then all of a sudden they realize all the money was pulled? New Hampshire just learned that all their
Yeah.
COVID money's pulled.
It's private. I don't think that they're dependent on grant funding for this. I mean, it's a money-making proposition.
It's Encore Renewable Energy that's doing it, and they're a B Corp that has a really good reputation, or at least in my very brief search.
Yeah, I haven't looked them up at all, but they're supposed to make money off of this. And if you go through, I mean, I'd encourage you, I'm not going to try and go through it myself because I get confused whenever I do. But in the, I had it up somewhere. If you look at the presentation that Mark did, there's a couple of pages where he goes through, start with this example. This is the simplified one, Dan, that you were talking about.
Mhm.
But he goes through how the money is made and how the distribution works. Past it. So look at this, start at this general contract, concept and contract structure, and he explains where each of the bins of money is coming from and going to. And it's quite clear what happens there. And so these two slides are the ones that I think are sort of key to our understanding of what goes on. I mean, Jack had actually very specifically asked, when Kearsarge and that other guy, Claude Mirabeau, was presenting, he said, how does this work? He didn't get it. Henry couldn't explain it to him. This is how it works.
So the town municipal has to be on the CPCNH?
Nope.
Doesn't?
Nope.
Because it's been back and forth. Where do we settle it?
You can be on utility power, a third party, or CPCNH. Doesn't matter.
It has to be Eversource.
Eversource territory, I think.
It has to be Eversource.
Eversource territory, it's not necessarily, it could be a separate provider. But
This building should be on Eversource now, but the new library is on Eversource, but everything else is community power.
And so to me, if, please jump in if I don't understand this right, like the only potential drawback I could see is if you, at some point in the future, were like, we're putting solar panels on the schools, and the numbers, the usage from the schools were used to calculate this thing, would that?
So the schools aren't included in this.
They had schools up there as an example.
Schools can be included on it, but I have no connection with the school. I will approach the schools and tell them about this, but I'm doing this for what I can do with Connor, because I can do it quickly.
No, understood. I got you.
Yeah. You said something else.
Well, but say you put solar panel on, I don't know, the transfer
Oh,
station or the
yes,
public
okay.
safety building, does that
This
screw that
was,
up?
I had this question for Mark, is what if, we're quoting you what our loads are going to be. What if we decide we're going to put solar on another facility, and all of a sudden our load is reduced significantly?
Yeah.
And he said that there's the cancellation clause is the out for that.
Okay,
So usually you will know well in advance when you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially true now that the grant funding is so much in question and everything will require a warrant article. So that can be taken care of. And they were going to think about whether there would be ways that they could accommodate that more easily. But for now, it's the 12-month.
it's a 12-month cancellation.
Yeah.
And of course, if we were to put solar on other municipal buildings as opposed to doing this plan, rough numbers, you almost get like a 50% discount on your electricity over the lifetime of the installation, because they usually have 8 to 10 year paybacks, and they're good for about 20 years. And this is only a 12-ish% discount, but there's no sort of warrant article, there's no upfront cost. It's just very much easier. Is that true?
I didn't really follow what you were saying there with the equivalents, but basically this is just giving you a discount on your rate.
Yeah.
There's no downside to it.
What's the term or lifespan of the project?
Their term is 20 years. The power purchase agreement is 20 years. The term for the town there's no 20-year clause at all in there. There is one thing that you need to think about though. This can go away at any point if certain things happen. So, and we lose our discount at that point.
Mhm.
So one of the examples is we've talked about the preferred mechanism is load reduction. They would prefer that if they have an entity that is putting power onto the grid, whatever that puts on could be used to reduce the load that's being charged to the coalition. Right now, that doesn't work because of the PUC and regulatory issues not being well done. It is actually in law, it's supposed to work that way, but in practice, it's not. If that gets fixed, then it would be to their advantage to change this mechanism for the Poverty Plains facility. And that would mean that they cancel all the group members' participation, which is kind of a drag, but.
I can't remember, where's it being built?
An abandoned water gravel pit.
It would be, I mean, I know it doesn't matter geographically, but it would be fun if it was being built in a gravel pit in Barrington and be
Yes,
part of it.
Yes,
Believe
yes,
me.
it would.
I haven't thought about that.
Presumably there'll be other projects down the road, right?
Yeah,
The only thing.
Yeah, this is, and this isn't actually, so remember that the coalition has a specific policy for projects This is not a coalition project. This is a private project, and they're just doing power purchase, which is part of their normal operation. But this is the site, and it is in Warner.
So there's no legal liabilities somehow attached at all for the town? Do we have to have the town legal look at it, or?
I think Connor was doing that, but I actually don't think that's necessary in this case. It's just a non-bill discount, and if it goes away, it goes away. That's the worst that can happen to us.
Even 30 days notice.
They do have to give us 30 days notice if they're going to cancel us.
I have trouble seeing a con.
Yeah.
I haven't come up with any, and like I said, we do have to vote on it.
Initially, I didn't know if there was any other risks attached, and if there were, my hesitation, my concern was the fact that just because we're dealing with that slight increase over Eversource and our rates and trying to like not have people skeptical of community power or
Yeah.
their, affiliations. That was my only concern, but it doesn't seem like there's any risks.
Yeah, no, and those concerns are reasonable, but I think they're separate issues.
Yeah.
It's not like many people pay any attention.
No, I know.
Municipality, pays for electricity, where
Right.
they get it from. So
Yeah, I mean, I have literally heard not one, so I think you all saw, we got a comment from Julie and Olivier asking about the
Fidium fiber.
Fidium fiber here in town, so we know that link is working. That's the only thing I've ever seen. There might have been one other one at some point, but no one has said anything about the rates.
It's good.
So,
Connor, have any input on this other than wanting a vote?
he asked me some specific, he had some specific questions. So the question of whether this would be affected if it was third-party utility or coalition default power. There's not. He asked me a few other things. All of them were answered. There basically was no.
Great.
I don't remember what the other ones were. I'd have to go back through my notes. But yeah, he did not express an opinion. He wanted us to make a recommendation or not. So,
Shall
any
we do
other
that?
questions? Would anyone care to make a motion about approving, making a recommendation to the select board to approve the membership agreement for the Poverty Plains facility?
Yes, I would move that we vote to approve the Poverty Plains facility.
I'll second.
We're not really approving this facility, but using their discount.
Participation.
Show of hands, aye. Okay, it's unanimously passed. I will pass that on to Connor. The other thing that's related to this is I've been putting together a summary. So this was where the online access to the Eversource accounts came in. And most of it is pretty straightforward. There's some weird things though. Jim, maybe you can account for this. The rec center really doesn't seem to be accounted. I mean, these two entries, one is a closed account and another one is a current account.
There's
But it's made.
4 different meters up there.
Well, so there's food pantry.
Yep.
Um,
And the
The
food
old-
pantry, there's 5 meters, including the food pantry.
okay, there's the old library.
Yeah,
The food pantry, what they're calling the rec hall, and this closed account. That's all that I have on our accounts.
so there's more than that.
Okay, and I know that this is not big enough to cover the rec center.
Yeah,
So we're gonna have to find out what that is and why that doesn't show up. I'll
But I would say, looking at what you got there, library old 105 Ramsdale is the library building, library and recreation.
mhm.
And the food pantry is the back feed to the food pantry end of it, the back meter. Then there's 3 separate lights that we get have a meter on,
Outdoor parking.
outdoor power lights in the parking lots.
Okay.
Huh, is there a meter?
They're each on their own meter.
But I think we're missing the building itself
I
because
think
these,
it's the top one. This is only for 1 month, right?
oh, you think it's the old library is
Yeah.
the whole building?
Yeah.
Ah, that could be, because these numbers are really high.
Yeah, that's the library rec building,
Okay,
and then that's the food pantry building. Down there was this food pantry.
okay, that would explain it. And do these numbers make sense? So that would say that this building uses roughly a little less than half of what the public safety building uses? Is that,
Yeah, that sounds right. Public safety building uses a lot of power.
yeah, I can tell.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the
good.
most expensive building we have.
So that explains that. The new library, I'm not sure how I'm gonna come up with numbers for that. I think I'm going to go to the Resilient Buildings Group and use their modeling numbers and take a big margin off of it because we have to play it safe. There was something
Now,
else.
some of those are old meters. It shows 4 Signature Drive Town Hall, and you got a 3 there for kilowatts. That's an old meter that isn't used anymore. It was a construction meter.
Oh, okay, these are I mean, the accounts are still active, but there's nothing, they're not being used.
It shouldn't be active for us.
Well, it's not canceled, so, well, all I'm saying, but there's no power consumption being indicated for
Yeah.
a while.
And the cemetery,
This
the cemetery has no power using right now.
Right,
Yeah.
that's, and these are so small that even if they
Yeah, they're all
were, it
small.
wouldn't matter. The ones that do matter a little bit, there's so many different things on Smoke Street and, you know,
There's-
what is this 100 Smoke Street, the recycling center? I mean, that,
I don't know why they have 100 because it's not 100.
right.
It's 224. Smoke Street, it's
Okay.
recycling center.
And we've got a few things at 224, we've got a few things, meetings at 226.
2 separate buildings. You got the MSW building where you dump off your trash. Then you have the recycling building. Those are both at 224
Okay.
Smoke Street.
So what's 226? Is that the,
Highway
226 is
department.
the highway department, but there's also the back shop at 226. That's on a separate meter. And you have lights for the yard there, and also there's trucks that they're contractor trucks that are plugged into that to heat them
Oh, for the
in the winter
diesel,
time
yeah.
for plowing snow.
Yeah.
They're all on the same bill with the light.
Okay, well, I'm going to assume that these are all legit. I'm not gonna worry that it says 100 Smoke Street, even
Yeah.
though it's actually 224.
That doesn't reflect on the bill as 100 Smoke Street, so I don't know why it still has that.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh,
As
'cause
I
it-
saw that, I thought, what is that?
Online it
That's-
does, but who knows?
Eversource has got some screwed up things.
Yeah,
tell you.
yes, yes.
The new library, they just have Route 125. Like, what do you mean? You know, I spent days trying to get that squared away. They kept telling me it was an Epping. I said, no, it's not an Epping.
Pretty sure the Barrington Library's in Barrington.
And then I gave them the meter number and they said, that doesn't exist. Well, this
Perfect,
bill's
don't
coming
send me a
from-
bill.
Okay, don't send us a bill then.
so I
That's
guess
when we
the,
changed over from,
the only
the
other
hospital
thing,
to us.
Jim, is, and it's really not enough to matter that much, is this, you're saying these two
Yeah, but-
were lights?
but Rec Hall, I think that is the new pavilion.
Oh, that could be, yes.
I believe that, and that isn't what it says on the bill either, but,
And so that would explain why its use went to,
but one
Was-
thing,
was nothing leading up.
Yeah.
When did that get finished? Was it not powered on?
July,
I was gonna say August,
yeah,
yeah.
something like that. And we
Okay.
waited 3 or 4 months to get a bill on that, because they didn't know how to bill it.
Okay, but that would explain why the bill didn't really kick in until August, and then it dropped off radically once winter hit in
Yeah.
January again.
Yeah,
Okay, so those numbers make sense, and the up and down nature
yeah.
is real.
137 Ramsey Lane is that facility there where the playground is and the pavilion and the water for the summer camp.
Okay, well, that explains what I think that explains all of the meters and the billing on here. My only problem now is that I have to work out, what to do with the town hall and what to do with the library in terms of claiming consumption. And I'll work on that and see what I can come up with, because that stuff goes into the application. Okay, that is it for that one. As long as we're looking at some of the stuff that's, in Google Drive, I wanted to let you know that I have moved the agenda and the minutes into Google Drive. So you can actually, I think you've probably noticed that the agenda that I send out isn't always the agenda that I end up with. It's a document in progress. You can always go to the Google Drive site, go to the directory for the agendas and look at the latest version. And I'm also making sure that all the links that are in there, you can access through either they're online or you can get to them through Google Drive. So, that should help out a bit. We shouldn't have any more links where they're on my computer and you can't look at them. Okay. Is that you, Jim?
And
My uncle would have loved you.
son,
The only other thing on the community power, and I'm sorry that Jack isn't here. He was going to be here. Maybe he got sick again. I just wanted to remind people that, and I am going to remind Connor that you can sell your RECs to the coalition. They're paying more than the price that the company Jack has been using is paying. They now have a tab on their website that's dedicated to this. So you go to cpcnh.org and it's under REC. I don't think it's in the menu, but it might be. And for the instructions, they now have an instruction set on how to switch. So you're not going to get rich off of this, Cindy, but you might get a few more bucks. And it's supporting a good cause. Think about it.
Do we want to advertise it generally? I mean, there's quite a few solar installations, right? Or, just have it on the website. It's not like we're gonna go door
Yeah.
to door.
Yeah, let's, that should be an action item for me to figure out where on the website we could put something about, this would go on the coalition page, I think. And we could also talk to Jack about, or someone in the town about putting it on Facebook.
There's no like a registry listing anyone who has solar in town, like, is there a
The
specific,
building department.
do they have a specific solar permit so you can actually get?
Well,
We're getting to that.
now you're getting into the Sol Smart section of the conversation. The answer is that the only permit that's required in Barrington for a solar installation is an electrical, at least for a standard residential roof mounted system or a rudimentary ground mount system. I don't know. I did meet with on Tuesday with Jamie and John Hopkins. And was talking to them about this issue. And I told them that it was just an introductory meeting. I had needed to learn more about what the recommendations were from Sol Smart. before I got into specifics about what I would like to see in terms of permits. I don't think, there's nothing on the Barrington, and you might have seen this, Cindy, there's nothing on the Barrington electrical permit that mentions solar specifically. There might be some questions to fill out in regards to it. There would almost have to be, since it's used for solar installations. But the title is just an electrical. And we probably want to at least get that changed to something like electrical/solar, so that it's a little bit more clear. We have a pretty simple process, as it turns out. We're not going to have to change very much, if anything.
Do they actually keep track of solar, the arrays that have been approved?
They have to approve them. If you look in the town report, there is, they do specify how many solar arrays have been approved in a given year. So I'm assuming that if they've done that, they must be able to track.
You think they keep a database or a solar spreadsheet or something?
There's probably a file of papers that you can go through and look to see if it says solar somewhere. I don't know, Jim. I don't know. That's
I
something.
guess I find it doubtful that they actually have a list, that they add to and maintain.
You might well be right. I'm sure that they can get to them, but it might be fairly painful.
Yeah, I would think so.
Just on the rack sales posting, if folks that are generating racks, right, are not on CPC, right? Because they don't
They
allow.
shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm wondering why we wouldn't put it on our regular site as opposed to the CPC page.
Oh, on a
Because
different.
they won't have reason to go to the CPC page.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Good
mean, you can do
point.
both, but it seems like they're just not gonna see it if it doesn't apply to them.
Where do you, let me bring up the site. Hang
I mean, you could, refer them to CPC, of course, but
on. Okay, so remember, we're going to be adding an education page to this at some point. Where do you think it should go there? Where would you envision it going?
I haven't thought about it, but I think it could just be energy news, but.
The trouble is that that's transient.
Can you add another highlighted file there?
Well, I hate to put some, I
Get
think
too much.
probably the best place in that case is the education site.
Is it an energy resource though?
It could be under the resources and tax credits, yes. I
Yeah.
guess that's
Yeah,
where it
something,
would
yeah.
belong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
related.
yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks, Dan. I think that's where it should go. And Leah has been working on this. If you read her email today, I looked at it a few days ago. It was clearly still in progress. There were some things that needed to be done. I haven't gone through it since. But yeah, that's a good idea. We will, I'll take that as another action item. Whenever we get someone who addresses the website, we'll have them add that to the energy resources. And I might be able to have Tiffany put that on, or someone on the staff put that on before them. Very good. Thank you.
I didn't know where Leah left it and Tiffany, so I emailed Tiffany today and asked her if she has any of the Google Analytics for our website, so we know how many visitors are coming daily, weekly, and if beyond the landing page, what pages do they actually go to get a sense of where we might want to put things.
And did she have an answer for me?
This afternoon, I emailed her.
Okay.
Let's see what she says.
Yeah, we've never done very well on getting those statistics. Have we? Really know who's looking at this stuff.
It's generally pretty easy, so
I mean,
see what Tiffany says.
the other thing that we had talked about doing and which should be followed up on is since the only good lists that exist in town are the library and the schools, we were thinking about asking them to send out a message to their lists asking if they would mind being put on an energy committee list. We don't really have the infrastructure to support that at the moment. We got this raft of hundreds of names. I don't know what we would do with it at this point. This is something that
He'd send out a quarterly update.
well, this is just the mechanism for dealing with it as contacts is something David would probably be able to deal with. And talk to him about.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could just use MailChimp, right?
Well, you know, that you have to pay for it.
No, it's
No, it's
free
free.
for
It's free?
Well,
basic.
for basic stuff, it's free.
Oh, is it?
Free
It's like-
version.
There's a free version
Oh,
and
I
there's a,
didn't know that.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, then that's it, probably we use something like that. And then just, I assume you just dump the list into it.
The tax bills are going out and they're gonna put an insert in them.
Is there anything that we want in there?
Yeah, and it has to be ready by the first week in May, I believe it was. So I just brought it up in case there's something you'd like on this insert.
Yeah, let's take that as an action item as well. Think about it. If you think of anything that should go on there, email it to me. This might be a reasonable place to put the rec purchases on there. Is there anything else that we want on there right now? Can't think of it.
We were on there back when we were on the ballot. It was effective, I think.
Yeah, but just reminding people that we have a lot of information on the webpage.
That's a good, yes, that's right. We should
Save
remind them
money
that
on-
we have the rebates and tax credits and that people can look at that. And also maybe we should remind them that if they want to contact us with questions, they can do it through that tab on the town site.
We could do something simple like the emblem. It's a really nice logo and something about for information about energy, saving, efficiencies, whatever in your town and in our town. Just have like a link with the website. We keep it there too.
Say that again?
We could just put like our nice logo.
That's not our logo.
That's-
but I thought it
Community
was-
Power logo.
But there was,
Yeah.
I thought we had one that was Barrington specific though,
We
right?
have a Barrington
It
specific
is
community power
Barrington
logo, but it's not an
Community Power.
energy committee
Right.
logo.
It's only for the coalition,
Hmm.
coalition business. Oh, it'd still be on there.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to make.
Yeah, no, I know. Honestly, you're right. Nobody will
What
have
was
ever
the
heard it.
idea beyond
But it's
that?
on our website, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
prominent on our website.
Where is it on?
Well, on the community power page,
Yeah, I assume it's on that page, but
Pops
I
up
don't
there
really
somewhere.
know.
I mean, there may be more trouble to
I guess.
fit it in.
There it is.
There it is.
I mean, I think it's promoting the fact that we are a community that has community power together, and it's.
You're right. We can actually use that anywhere we like, even if there's no specific connection.
So, you could say for more information about community power and energy in Barrington, visit our website.
Yeah, this is eye catching.
I think it's
Yeah.
usually it's a color insert, right?
I believe so.
And that usually,
Yeah.
it always kind of pops out as nice.
Is Tiffany doing this? Who do I get in touch with?
Crystal, I know, is doing it. I think Tiffany's helping her on
Okay, because Tiffany's my general contact.
it. Yeah.
That's who I go to. Okay, good idea. I'll try and put something together with that. Think about it. If you think of anything else that you think would reasonably go on there, let me know as soon as you can, because we got a month.
Yeah, I would wait till the last minute.
Visibility, right? Just being able to say the energy committee, right? Just reminding people that we're active in doing things.
Okay. Moving along. Oops.
This next meeting will have 2 weeks.
If there is a next meeting. Um,
On the
So-
agenda.
Subject
Yeah,
to
no,
change.
we are, yeah, I was thinking about having only one meeting a month, but for now, I don't think we're gonna do that. We did have the Sol Smart kickoff meeting. It's,
It should have
It's-
taken an hour and a half. Is that what you were gonna say?
well, so a lot of this program, what I'm learning is, what I call earning brownie points.
Yes.
And Jack calls it going for ISO 9001. I mean, people are really into this accreditation thing. And I don't care about the certification, the accreditation. What I care about is streamlining the processes and making things easy on both our code enforcement and the contractors who are installing this.
And the homeowners.
And the homeowners. That's where my priorities lie.
But luckily, those goals are synchronous.
Well, they can be, but so to give you an example, today was the first office hours. And, I mentioned that some of the questions that came up in the meeting with John and Jamie, I brought up, and one of the main ones was that if you looked at the baseline document, that spreadsheet, and tracked it onto the criteria, a lot of what they were saying was that where our zoning ordinance does not have an item covered, they would like to preclude that any action is taken in the future. So for example, if a glare requirement or screening requirement was put, if that's not in there now, they would like to make sure that doesn't go in there in the future. What John told me was by law, you cannot do that. You cannot preclude a future action of the planning board and ZBA. You're not allowed to do that. And it wouldn't work if you tried because they can always change it in any case, regardless of.
I guess I read that as they were looking for something along the lines of a glare study is not required.
The glare study, and you can't do that. You can't, so what they don't want to have put in there is that a glare study is required.
Right.
What we can do is remove, so what they assured, and I brought this up, I said, it appears that what you're asking here is contrary to state regulation, if John is correct. And I said, he may not be correct.
Mm.
And their expert on this is Zach, and he's at the federal level, and he said that, that he understood why that was the impression that came across. But really, all he wants to make clear to the planning and zoning boards is that they don't want actions taken to put these in place because they would stifle the use of solar. So they're not really saying that this should be a part of the ordinance.
Oh, so it's more like a recommendation from Soul Smart that there's a discussion with zoning and planning that says we don't recommend these.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so along those lines, Sarah asked me if I told her I'd had that meeting, and she asked me if I had any minutes on it and would I send them to her. I said, sure, that's no problem. And I sent them to her, and she sent back an email saying, great job, kudos, you're the first one to get the credit for meeting with a committee on the zoning or planning board in regards to these in regards to the baseline document. I don't really care about those credits, but a lot of people do, and this is what you go through. So we're going to get the credits and we'll get the certification, but what I want everyone to keep in mind is that the important piece is really to get this streamlined and get things to work smoothly so that there's no resistance to installations in Barrington.
I hear what you're saying and I agree. I just think, and part of what they're trying to do is just, like, you probably have a much better handle on this than I do, but have the energy committee people and the planning people sort of familiar with some of the issues. Does that make sense? Because, I didn't know anything about the glare or
Oh, you've never read our solar ordinance.
Well, it specifically doesn't mention it, right?
It does. It does mention glare. It doesn't require a study. And I asked John what it would take to have what they do say removed, and he asked for documentation. You know, what I said is, solar panels are not a glare generator. They have anti-reflective coating. It's really not an issue. The only time it might be an issue is if you're right at an airport.
Yeah.
And he asked if I could get documentation on that. I asked them if they could provide that, and they're going to look into it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with the accreditation. It's just that for me,
It's a little fluffy, is that what you're saying?
It's never been the kind of thing that attracts me, but that's me.
Yeah.
And I recognize that, and I don't have anything against it. I just don't want it to be an end in and of itself. I think the end I'm looking for is a little bit different.
Yeah, oh, I agree. That streamlining the process makes a huge difference, and making it clear to everybody is important.
So what does this accreditation get you? I mean, is it just a logo?
You get a
You
plaque
get a
that says
plaque.
you're a bronze Soul Smart town, or if you're a
Yeah.
real
And
goody two shoes, you get silver or something.
We actually already have, Barrington is actually very well positioned. We do a lot, and we are blocking a lot of things. There's a few things that are required to get these higher levels of certification that I don't know if we're going to want to do. Some of them I know we're not going to want to do. One of the ones that, when I started going through that baseline document, I went to the page where it has all of the criteria, and it was like, whoa, this is a lot of things. And the first one that I came across was, I think it was required for platinum or something. And it's, you have to implement a completely online system for the approval of residential rooftop systems, such as, I don't know if you're familiar with the federal Solar App Plus. It's a good thing. When you're only doing 20 permits a year,
Yeah,
it is
really makes
not
sense.
worth your time to put together a mechanism for having this on your website and going through all of the hoops that you have to. For Nashua, it's probably very worthwhile. It's not for us.
Part of the idea of all this is that you would attract more business, more people wanting to build solar arrays. And
It's to make it easier, which in and of itself hopefully will attract people. But they're actually not saying that those kinds of things or something. So what I should point out is, if you went through the baseline tab, what it said is look at the points that are brought up in there, which is only a few, and they have very specific categories. Then you go to the criteria and look at those specific categories. There was only maybe a dozen of those, and I was just looking at everything. I was thinking we're supposed to go through this whole thing. We're not. And they recognize that for small towns, a lot of what they're recommending would not make sense. So no one's saying that we should go for these higher levels. But the interesting thing is that strictly looking at it on a points basis, we have to do some verification to actually qualify for the points that we've already done things for. But just looking at it on the basis of points, we're already gold or something like that. And, we're in a good position. Okay, that was it for Sol Smart.
Does it have a nice logo?
I guarantee
Put it on our
you
website.
they have this logo.
Having said that, I don't remember what it
The
is.
picture of the plaque. So, Cindy.
Yes, sir.
Library, rec center updates, actually, library updates.
On time and on budget. We're talking grand opening parties and stuff. And the solar stuff, the bids are to be opened on Monday at noon, I think. And then there's
Oh, I thought they'd be gonna be opened right away. Good.
and then there's a subcommittee to review them. which is a bunch of totally unqualified people, including me, and somebody who's actually qualified. Katrina Casper is going to advise. Because there's going to be stuff on that I don't understand. So she came up with that. And then, and then we have to have the cash to meet the bid so we can sign the deal, and we're it's
So
going to happen, I think. I'm 99% sure.
I will remind you of something,
Okay.
and I don't want you to be constrained in this regard, but I will remind you, when we looked at the quotes for the town hall,
Yes.
we did put together a set of criteria.
Yes.
Those are public documents. You can look at.
Yes.
We, based on, what Jack had told me about warranty claims and things like that, we did not like active systems, meaning solar optimizers on the roof.
Okay.
They had a high failure. What the claim was, what Jack said is they had a high failure rate and the warranty issues were a nightmare. I looked into that and it was true.
Yeah.
I found a lot of evidence that.
And there were
was a
certain
real
inverters
problem.
you guys didn't like too. And
There are certain inverters that require solar optimizers.
oh, okay, was that? And then there was the other issue I remember from that chart was people just sort of lying about production. I mean, exaggerating the production.
Overestimating.
Yes, it's hard. I'm seeing now, I had always been under the impression that those things were pretty spot on. But our estimates are going to be off. Yeah.
Well, I
think
Yeah, it depends on the weather and a bunch of other stuff
It
that
does.
you can't control, but like, it looked like some of them, if I recall correctly from our conversation, were saying that like an east-west one would produce more than 100%, and somebody
Oh,
pointed
I
out
don't-
that
I
that
don't-
was impossible or something.
I don't think it was that.
It wasn't
bad.
that flavored, but there was,
No.
yeah, so anyway, I remember that we should at least be aware of that.
The thing that got me is even with the stuff, we ended up using some of the stuff from Revision's estimate. And they basically said for every month of the year, they were estimating that the amount of the covered production would be something like 78%. And that's crazy. It turns out that it's going to be way under that. In the summer, we're going to probably produce way more power than can be consumed on site. And in the winter, it varies all over the place. So I'm hoping that we can come up with some reasonable curves to estimate that in the future. I don't know, it's not my business. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But I think if we're ever analyzing this for another building, I'd use them there. But I was very surprised that, a commercial estimate wouldn't be more astute about that, I guess is how but it's not.
Yes, thank you. We are aware of the process that was used previously, and I had recommended that we use it again.
Okay, good.
I just hope I can reproduce it.
Some contractors are not gonna bid the ground mounts. They've said that at the meeting, at the walkthrough.
Yeah, you're talking about Revision.
Revision, and there was at least one more.
Do they not like the idea of them, or they just don't work with them?
Well, there's a lot of issues with that.
They thought that the amount of shading was going to be an issue. Susan was concerned about impinging on the usable area. I don't agree with either of those comments, actually. I think that, especially considering that the ground mount is probably going to be maximum about a third of the total production capacity. It's a pretty small system. It does have to be fenced, which I wasn't aware of, but Susan was aware of that, because it's three-phase. But it's basically going to be right off at the edge in the, down in the ditch. It's not going to use any significant area that you would want to have activities in. As far as the shading goes, I do think that there are some trees that should come down, and I don't know if the board will ever approve that. Even if they don't come down, I don't think it's a calamity, but you're gonna limit your production.
But it was revision that wanted to put those on the roof.
They want, so what revision proposed was, and revision has pulled out.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they're not gonna bid.
I thought he said he was definitely gonna bid.
He did say, he said he was gonna bid, whether he said he was definitely, I'm not sure, but he's not, they pulled out. But he had proposed putting additional panels on the roof with an eastward orientation, which I thought was crazy, given the big pines that are along the highway to the east. I didn't understand that at all. So
But he was, he was adamant that he was gonna bid about this come hell high
he
water.
did say he was gonna bid
I
on
thought,
it. I
okay.
didn't really understand
Yeah.
why, but that's not our concern.
Yeah, they officially, they're supposed to, I think the way the RFP was written, they're supposed to tell us if they definitely are or they definitely aren't by a certain date, and
They were
they
supposed to
said,
tell Susan.
this is a definite no, so.
So how many bidders?
Oh, is that why the letter was generated? Did they meet that deadline?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to swear to that without referencing some notes, but I
Okay.
believe that there was an issue if you had to say yes or no by a certain day that they said no, so.
Actually, I think what happened was that Susan pulled the deadline for submission back enough that she decided that she was not going to require people to make that comment in advance.
Okay, maybe,
Yeah, I
but
think
they're a
that's-
definite no, I guess is what I can say.
Yeah, they are definite. No,
But
I
there are
was-
several other bidders. I just thought this was all
Well,
kind
there was
of.
a-
There's several people who showed up, was it 4?
Right, we will know
Four, I
on
think.
Monday.
Yeah, we'll know on
You
Monday.
don't actually have numbers.
Seems to me there was 4, wasn't there, Paul?
I think so, but I
Yeah.
couldn't remember who they were other than revision. And
603
Granite
Solar.
State Solar.
603 Solar. was
603 was there?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
Bates was.
No. James is not there.
but didn't have to be there anyway.
No, you don't have to be there to
No.
put in a bid.
No.
Oh,
To my knowledge, one sealed bid has been submitted,
I
well,
thought that was taken out, I believe.
it was funny, it actually,
It was in there
did- the
one
letter
time.
did say that attendance was mandatory that morning, but it's
But-
not.
But somebody had made arrangements not to attend,
Yeah, well, then,
Yeah.
they'll be always.
yeah, so,
Anyway,
but I
well,
thought that was pulled out anyway, the mandatory thing, which, it kind of got changed.
yeah, it did, which is understandable, you know, it's last minute and,
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, to write this thing in such a short time frame for somebody who's never done that before is
Oh,
a little
definitely,
intimidating.
definitely.
anyway, there's nothing going on with the rec center.
No, we haven't had a meeting yet.
Yeah,
Asked today about a meeting and we didn't get an answer back.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Connor as well, and he said, no, there are no meetings, and, you know, he doesn't know when there are gonna be meetings, and we'll probably be invited to the meetings if they ever take place, but who knows?
And we asked today and there was no response back about setting up a meeting yet.
Do we know what's going to happen with the library facility, what is currently the library facilities, and are they gonna keep those heat pumps? Do we have any idea about what it's gonna be?
Don't know about HVAC. They're coming together with a price, an estimate, let's say. And we have to pick out what we can afford in the project. And there's certain things, according to the grant, that have to be done first. And of course, one of those in this project is a priority is the wall.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that are priorities. I'm not sure if the HVAC is gonna get totally done, but we do need
So I
air
mean,
quality
those units are
changes.
already there. Are they going to leave those as separate offices or the way they are now, or
There's gonna be
integrated?
some changing in the upstairs configuration.
There's supposed to be a stairway that connects them, right?
Yeah, stairway and a Lula,
A what?
Lula,
What's that?
am I saying it right? An elevator.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, but it's not like your typical elevator. It's
like more like a freight elevator.
more like a freight elevator, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a reconfiguration of the upstairs footprint of the offices and things.
I have no idea what the upstairs even Oh, is the library considered the upstairs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, I got it.
So there's the big open space, the little program room, and then a couple of tiny little offices. And
Yeah.
I would assume they'd have to reconfigure those for their purposes.
yeah, reconfiguring the offices, and it sounds like they wanna move that wall, which we thought was fine, so,
And this is, it's all gonna belong to the rec center, right?
yes.
Okay.
So, and they want us cut the main part of the room into 2 program rooms if they can, or open the whole thing up. They wanna have that luxury. I say luxury, I shouldn't say it that way. They wanna have that,
They wanna-
Flexibility.
They wanna either open it up or make it
yeah,
more
with
shut
a, with
down.
a.
With like a movable partition thing.
Movable partition.
Oh, I see.
So they want the flexibility of either having one big space or a divided space.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
but that's another thing that might not, make it on the list.
Yeah, weirdly, the dividers are expensive.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, well, to me, they seem weirdly expensive for what they are. It looks like
Yeah.
a giant souped up curtain to me, and
Yeah.
it's like, why is
Yeah.
that 50 grand? But it
Yeah.
is, so.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that actually
tracks
doesn't
and,
surprise me.
Yeah.
They're
getting
pretty
all set up.
substantial things, and
yeah,
there's a lot of mechanics involved in making sure that they don't die in a year.
yeah.
And a lot of them die in a year anyway. Okay, moving on. I had asked that people review the education stuff, and I have a request. I would like someone to take this on as a project. I don't have the time for it. I'm sort of flat out on all of the other things that I'm doing here. And what that would mean is, we're gonna go through this, and as a group, we're gonna say what we think is worthwhile, what we think is not great, and get some idea of what belongs in there. But someone needs to decide what the site's going to look like, how it's going to be organized, what the categories are gonna be, and then convey that to whoever we have doing our website development, whether it's David Weingart or someone else. So we're going to have someone who's doing that, and we'll see who that is. But is there anyone who would be willing to take on a project?
What do you see the time frame for this delivery?
It's not critical. It doesn't have to be done quickly. We have no commitments here. It is one of the few things that we can still do without funding.
Could you see it phased? Like, there's step one is get this piece done, and then if we have more time, get this other piece done kind of thing?
If someone took this on, any way they would want to approach it would be fine with me. You can phase it, you can do it in a lump, you can, any way. I'm not going to put restrictions on it unless things seem to be going wrong.
Okay.
But Cindy, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate. I don't think you're one of the people that I
Well,
was thinking.
so the library stuff is gonna wind down.
Ah.
But that's why I was asking about your time frame.
Okay. Anyone interested?
I'd work with someone on it.
Okay, yeah, more than one person
Yeah, I
would be
mean,
great.
maybe we could break it up, 2 or 3 sections,
Yeah.
right? Because you got a lot of topics, maybe we're not gonna do all of them, but.
There are a lot of topics. I did go, I spent a lot of time going through these, and we can talk about this today if you want to. We don't have to do it today either. This isn't critical, but I did sort of give my general impressions of what I thought I did.
The one of the groupings of videos, I believe it was the Solar Energy International, was really technical. And I didn't think that was gonna be something that most people were gonna.
So, right, those are technical training mainly for contractors. They vary in quality, some of them aren't great. So this is where I was thinking, organizationally, we're gonna wanna have some things there are going to be people in town who really wanna dive into this and would like to educate themselves to a fairly deep level. We should say, if we have links to these things that are effectively technical courses, we should say that's what they are. And there will be people who will go in there and go, no, this isn't for me. But we should also have things like the which the DOE videos are.
Those are
they're
really short clips, and there was like, they're visually appealing. It's like a whole menu of like, oh, I want to learn about this, and they're
Right.
like 2 minutes long.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are great for people who just want a quick introduction, want something to watch, sort of, they might decide on the basis of what they see there, yeah, I'm interested, or no, that's enough. And then we give them someplace else to go. So I thought these were worthwhile. I mean, if we decide to do that, the difficult thing about some of the DOE stuff is that you can't pick and choose. It's all on their one page, and they aren't YouTube videos. They're their own embedded videos. They don't have separate links, at least not that I could see.
On the other hand, they don't have ads, and
They don't. It's true. Yeah, YouTube has gotten pretty obnoxiously. Anyway, I thought the DOE videos were worthwhile. We can have descriptive paragraphs. We can say here's what you'll find on this site. Here's what you can look at.
Annotate them.
Recommend. One thing that I was very disappointed in was this site, which these information books for educators are great. All of these energy efficiency categories are gone. All of them.
oh.
Wow.
So,
So what is there anything left?
well, this stuff at the top, these energy info books, which are sort of, different level course books for everything from kindergarten to high school.
But they're really for teachers, right? I mean, not.
They're for curricula, but they're informative. And, if people, I mean, unfortunately, they've couched it in terms of, elementary school and, that's sort of, so if someone goes in and looks at the high school one and realizes that this is more than they wanted, are they going to want to go look at a kindergarten presentation, or are they just going to be insulted at that? And that's the problem with this presentation. I don't know what to do about that. I mean, we could actually, I believe, so you can actually we could use these links separately and not go through this site, which couches it in terms of grades 3 to 5. And we could just say, here's some things at different levels, right? And that would work. And I don't think these will go away. They shouldn't go away. They're not biased in any way. They are presenting all of the technologies, in a relatively unbiased manner. So there's everything from fossil fuels to, geothermal energy to nuclear
I
energy.
don't want to look at the nuclear part because
You won't
I've
like
yet
it.
to meet an unbiased.
Did these links recently break?
I know that a couple of months ago, they were still there.
Okay, because I was going to say, I thought this has been on our agenda for a little bit, and I think, and I believe that I had seen the material before, and now it's gone.
The last time we talked about this, some of them had disappeared, and I mentioned this at a meeting, and now they are all
They're
disappeared.
gone.
Yes, and I think we know who we can attribute that to.
So, like I said, I reached out to Tiffany. I think it's important to see what our analytics are for website traffic. But I think we should probably approach education in parallel paths, right? So we talked about like the library having NCAP or something, whether it be home improvement or energy efficiency, and try to highlight the work of the committee, but also just what we can do for the people in the town. And so, beefing up an energy section in the library, maybe showing some sort of dashboard of the solar energy that's being created. I mean, people love to see things, graphs, and what's actually happening.
So you're talking about more like a holistic marketing approach as opposed to just
the way. I don't think the website's going to get as much as we would like. I think the educational material is really important, but I think where we need to go with that is to engage the science teachers in the schools and say, hey, this is really good in your science class. Unbiased and it's really important and that you probably get some buy-in. I mean, it could be just one chapter in one something, but it exposes dozens and dozens and dozens.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be more of a project than you think, because you have to go through a curriculum committee.
Well, we don't know what they're doing already. I can't believe they
We
don't
don't.
mention energy anywhere in the curriculum.
I mean, and you know,
I don't know.
I'm just saying, it's kind of a black
So,
hole. in a sense.
I can tell you at the middle school level, because I took the textbooks out to homeschool Colin during COVID, and he is a lot.
There's not a lot, did you say?
No.
Well, the
I might have
problem is that
supplemented that
there's
section quite a bit.
probably going to be less all the time.
Yeah.
But this is, it is a, curriculum is a complicated, process with the schools. It's not just presented to the board and if they like it and think it's a good idea that it's done. It really, there's a whole progression of things. And I'm not saying we shouldn't start, but we need to realize that it's going to take a long time to reach fruition.
I almost think we should, if you don't mind me suggesting this, we should have like a brainstorming session about marketing in general and sort of put it into like low-hanging fruit groups, like not a lot of effort for a lot of impact versus more effort, less impact, which is obviously the
Yeah,
one you kick the furthest away, and then the sort of in the middle stuff where it's medium amounts of work for medium amounts of impact.
now you had brought up, having a section in the library devoted that both could publicize what this committee is doing and serve as an education resource for the town. And people go to the library, and I think more people will go to
I think
the
a lot of people will go to the library. And I think, sadly, I think we should be on Barrington Connections. Just with like one-liner updates periodically, and I don't even use social media, and I don't know how, but I will learn it for that purpose. If you can't get Diane Singh to do it, she'd be much better.
That's a very good art, so.
that's a good point. I don't mind waiting, and I do once in a while into.
But if Diane, if we can get someone into the group who likes to do this and is accustomed to doing it, that would be great. So that is the kind of stuff that Diane is good at.
She's done it for the library, and she does it very skillfully, I think, because she, she's got an artist's mind, so it's attractive stuff that she's posting. She's very thoughtful about the language that she uses so that it conveys information without inflaming anything. And she handles the comments very skillfully. Connections is pretty well moderated, but in that.
By whom and in what
She's
way?
very tactful.
Yeah, she's extremely tactful. I don't know who moderates Connections because I'm not on it. Do you know?
It's a private group, so it's
Whoever.
There's multiple moderators.
And we've received feedback from them where they said, guys, we don't want you doing this because
This is a Facebook group?
yeah.
Sometimes they shut commenting off, right? Some of those sites, they shut the commenting off.
Yes, yeah. But when she has dealt with comments that she's had to deal with, she's done it very skillfully.
So, some of the kinds of things that have come up in relation to our group, it's not been on Barrington Connections, I guess it's been on other Facebook sites.
So there's sort of a, you may know more about this than I do, but is there not a group that sort of has a maybe right-leaning?
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 different
I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
groups that are
there's
very similar.
at least 4,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, obviously, if someone has their own site, they can do whatever they want.
Yes,
Yeah, that.
Connections is, I think, a very well-moderated, lots of traffic. Does that seem fair?
I think so. I would be the first one to go to.
Okay. Well, I have it on my, action items to call Diane and Roger and talk to them about this. So that's sort of a kick in the pants for me. There's some very good reasons why we should be doing And I mean, just having her participate in these conversations would probably be incredibly useful.
She knows what she's doing with this kind of thing.
Okay.
Could we have perhaps on our next meeting or the meeting after, like a brainstorming session and try to rank things just to help focus the work so it's not so like figure it out, you know what I mean? Just and prioritize kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're talking about the education stuff in general.
I think I would expand it to just like marketing and
Okay.
education. So,
Education.
well, education as not just solely on the website
Right.
per se.
Education engagement.
Yeah. And what are, like, if we could come up with, say, I don't know, 5 or 6 things we could do and have some discussion about which are the most impactful and the least amount of work and prioritize those first.
What are the low hanging fruit?
Would it be worthwhile to try and get Diane in here before we do that? So that she could participate?
Probably, seeing as I never even have used social media.
Okay.
And actively try to avoid it.
Like I said, yeah, we don't have to deal with this stuff right away. Yeah, it's-
I do a fair amount. I like photography, marketing. I do all the social media, not a lot of it, but I do it for our lab. I do our lab's website. You know,
Oh, really?
I've built websites.
The secret is out.
So I could probably handle web updates. It's not that hard. It's just content management. So,
Well, I still think it would be well worth having someone.
for sure, the more the merrier. And
Okay, there's no need to go through this, well, I mean, since we started, I guess did people look at the Sacramento SMUD?
Yes.
Theirs is well done. It's unfortunately very tailored to Sacramento.
Yes.
But I think there's stuff in there that's really good. We can look at it. And Rob, I think we should drop the.
oh yeah, no, it was on my homework list, so I just gave them to you. But and those were very California based as well.
And
So.
actually, I just sent a couple other links. It's like 15 minutes before the meeting, so
I
I doubt
know.
anybody saw it.
So the
But one was
yeah,
from
the
EPA.
EV bus stuff was all like news clips, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just trying to remember which ones were which.
And by the way, you were right. That company that I had recommended the podcast for and was going to talk about it, they have clearly gotten it to true.
I don't remember that. Which
It's the one down in Massachusetts. I can't think of the name of it right now, but you had mentioned that the place in Maine
Had
Oh,
problems.
trouble with the
Yeah.
buses. That was
The-
them, and there were problems.
Oh yeah. It was a specific company that was making them, and they didn't work. That's the problem.
I didn't
They're good.
I didn't look into it very far, but there was definitely an issue there. Yeah, but I, at this point, with the funding as it is, and the interest as it is, I think that is something, that is definitely not low hanging fruit.
No.
But what I sent along was this issue about educating people. And it's not so much that it's promoting EV school buses, but it's saying what we've got now is killing the kids, it's poisoning them. So it's a they call it a toolkit. It's from EPA. I don't know if I checked it today, so
It's still there.
It's still there.
Does the EPA still
But,
exist?
They haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, it gives all these, resources, tools and stuff for educating about the issues of,
diesel
idling
issues,
buses,
yeah.
diesel.
So that should be
You know,
part
so-
of this whole general
Yeah, so
marketing.
it's really kind of a
education.
Pre-electric school bus, just getting people.
Yeah.
Like what we
acclimatized.
currently have is not good.
Yeah.
We should probably change to something else. Yeah.
And then there was one other one that there was a webinar that was done several years ago, I guess, but they had a link to it or, recorded on, I think, the DES website. And it was talking to administrators and people that handle bus fleets and all talking about EV. So, maybe a little dated or maybe beyond what we want, but I just thought it was interesting.
No, I'll add them to this general
Yeah.
list of stuff to
Yeah.
consider, when I,
But it was specific to New Hampshire. It was like New Hampshire, Maine, and
That's good.
Vermont had done this project where they presented this stuff.
No, that's
You know,
useful,
A
yeah.
little more relevant than SMUD, you know.
Yeah,
more
yeah.
Specific.
The SMUD stuff, it's very elementary, it's really basic, but it's well done.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna generally find that California is like
Yeah.
decades ahead of
No,
us.
there's a lot of money there. The only other thing I had, Doug, you pointed this out as well, I had already put this in here at that point. But,
Yeah. Op-ed.
I don't know if people read this
Oh,
op-ed.
the,
It's about the PUC commissioner
Yeah.
who, basically is completely biased. It turns out that the coalition has filed a complaint to have him removed from the PUC. So there's actually, I don't know if it's a docket, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah,
But they have filed a petition for removal.
and the consumer advocate. Both.
Also did,
Yeah, that's what this article.
I didn't know he had actually, I was clearly
Oh, I actually
critical.
saw that if he gives a link to it, if you really want, he links
This?
the actual, request or submission, yeah, in the docket there. But yeah, is that from him?
Petition, no, this is,
No,
That's not
it's a
it.
different link,
Yeah.
sorry. I mean, he had a bunch of different links.
petition.
I just found it
saying-
more informative than most stuff. So, well, that was theirs, but
That's a surprising.
You mentioned the advocate up a little higher, I thought.
well, I mean, he is the advocate, so I mean, it's his own thing. But no, but it says I submitted I don't know what you call it, petition.
Hmm.
I didn't,
I mean, I looked at it, so I know it's there somewhere. No.
that might have been it.
No, it was an actual legal document, you know. Yeah.
No, I didn't notice that, but
Well.
I know that
saw
that
it.
there
Anyway,
is an actual,
Yeah.
petition to have that commissioner removed.
Right.
Of course, the question is, what are the other commissioners like and who would replace it?
Well, and I think the update, he mentioned it or somewhere I saw that he actually did recuse himself from that particular doc.
Yes.
You know, they all should be removed, but I mean, they're really bad. I mean,
well,
just
yeah.
from our perspective,
Yeah.
they're just so pro-business. And,
Well, I mean, they all come from Eversource, and that their interest is that the utilities, should govern all.
Right.
If,
But he actually referenced, he had some quotations, I think it was in this piece. This guy actually went to the town, because he lives in the town of Bedford, and Bedford is looking to join CPC, and he actually got up.
yeah, they
and
do have a
announced,
link to that.
I'm a PUC commissioner, but I'm just here speaking for myself, but I think this is all crap, and he just went on.
Oh,
It was really, obnoxious.
All the opt-out aggregations.
He's not very
Genuine
smart,
twice.
'cause that's what
You
led to
see
this.
CNH just slamming.
Yeah, and that's what led to him getting, recusing himself.
Yeah.
He basically outed himself as.
Well, and he even
Fine.
did it out of the comment time for
Right,
that. He,
right.
yeah, it was very stupidly done. The guy, clearly stuck his foot in his mouth.
Yeah.
And,
Now, if they would all do that, they're at home, but then they'll just fund some more, fill the vacuum. But I thought it was interesting just describing that whole situation with the,
yeah, no, the Consumer Advocates article that I had, that the link in the agenda goes to, it's a good article. And he really brings up all the points that need to be brought up. And I didn't have anything. Oh, yeah, I did want to go through. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. There is 2 legislative reviews tomorrow, if you're interested. One from Clean Energy New Hampshire and one from the Coalition. The Salt Smart office hours are every Thursday at 12:30, and I was glad to have that opportunity to ask my questions today. It wasn't exactly, people weren't jumping in to talk about things. It was a little quiet, but we'll see what happens with that. I must have forgotten to remove this item. And we will have a meeting in 2 weeks. And that is everything I had. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up?
Well, there are some legislative updates, and mainly just that stuff is going to the Senate now that already passed the House.
Right.
So I'm paying attention to, one, of course, on offshore wind, and there's several on nuclear. They're basically trying to define clean energy as,
Right.
I mean, this is literally what they said, nuclear and other renewables. I'm saying, nuclear is not a renewable. You cannot put it next to other renewables, and
Yeah.
it makes sense.
I mean, it is debatable whether you want, it should be allowed to be called clean energy, but it is definitely
Not
not
renewable.
renewable.
Yeah, and it's definitely not clean. The only thing they're referring to is, of course, carbon emissions, which even there is not quite true. But that's the
You
game
can
they're
bring those
playing.
points up about virtually anything that involves extractive industries, which
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but isn't it also super expensive and not,
well, yeah, that
Yes.
too, but.
so why?
Because they're getting huge subsidies to make it less so. But
Right.
the thing is, they want to set the stage for bringing in all these little mini nukes that they're going to be building all over the state.
Didn't
supposedly.
TSNH go bankrupt over secret?
Yeah, but they're gonna,
Just saying.
it's not gonna be, the
This
utilities.
is like fusion. It's the permanent
Yeah.
dream of
Yeah,
the
it's
future.
not quite that awful. I mean, they are,
Well, fusion
designing
isn't awful, it
prototypes.
just hasn't worked.
well, yeah, I mean, it would be great if it works, but, these
Well, I
will
want
work. It
unicorn
just-
power, but
No.
it doesn't seem to be a thing,
And
so.
they're actually proposing, they actually wrote a bill that exempts them, or they can do it off-grid. And so you could have your own little
Right.
mini nuke in your backyard.
Well,
That sounds really sexy.
Doug, they're talking about for industrial processes
Yeah.
where,
Right.
and, in some ways it makes sense, but I don't want to get into a nuclear debate.
Oh, yeah,
in this
I
committee.
know. I'm just saying, this is a little of what's going on.
Yeah.
And, it's just something I'm obsessed with.
Yeah, no, but the crossover and what's going on in the legislature, there's a lot of pertinent stuff. That's why, I point out, these reviews, they boiled it down to a few items. You won't all agree with their selection, perhaps, but these are the ones that are important in the energy perspective.
Yep.
And the stuff is well presented. The people who are doing this are pretty good. I mean, both Clean Energy New Hampshire and the coalition have some really good people who are very involved in this. So, I unfortunately, I have an appointment at the German consulate tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to sit in on either of these. So I'm out of it. Anything else? In that case, I will call it and we can go home. We are adjourned.